What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its art, its story, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should check out or not. I'm going to be talking about Clone Conspiracy number 3. So Clone Conspiracy number 3 is a very interesting book. You know, it's written by Dan Slott. It's really taken over as the main title for any Amazing Spider-Man fan, because this is where everything is happening. The Amazing Spider-Man title, Silk, and Prowler, they're all tie-ins to this, and they explain a few different things, but this is where all the juicy bits happen. So what we do is we open up in Clone Conspiracy number 3 with Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy still trying to escape from the New U facility. You get the Lizard hot on their tail, and ultimately the Lizard is still just like, hey man, boss just wants to talk, man. He wants you on his side. And what happens is really funny, because immediately after sensing no hostility from the Lizard, they web him up anyway and they make a run for it. And he's just like, oh, that sucks, man. So I thought that was really funny. But we get a different sense, because as we move through this comic book, we realize what kind of stretch, how far things have really gotten when it comes to this New U technology and who's involved. The conspiracy runs much deeper than anybody really ever thought possible. As these guys continue their escape, we flash back to Horizon Labs, where we've got Kane, the Scarlet Spider, as well as the original Gwen Stacy clone that are hanging out there, and they're trying to find a situation or solution to their kind of problem. We find that Anna is having trouble analyzing the compound that's in these drugs, so they're not necessarily sure how they can go about helping anybody out or making them in mass, something along those lines. And then they finally realize that Kane could possibly be the cure to this whole thing. And when we kind of figure that out, they try to call the cops because, hey man, they haven't tried that yet. And we find out that the police chief is on the take. That she's got her medication she has to worry about. And then all of a sudden, everybody knows that Gwen is at Horizon Labs, that the possible solution is there. So Peter and Gwen, Spider-Gwen, start making their way over to Horizon Labs, only to find that it is just absolutely obliterated. The Rhino came crashing in, and there's all kinds of chaos and ridiculousness that's ensued, and ultimately Gwen has overheard this entire conversation. So not only does she suggest bringing her back, but also Kane, because Kane might be the solution to these kind of things. And then Anna Marconi, she's just like, I should go too, because I understand what your problem is. Which is interesting, because we've seen Dr. Octopus earlier building up a new proto-body, a new clone body to start implanting different people into. So that's going to be really interesting too. But the most interesting thing comes at the end, because the end shows the Jackal heading off himself to basically grab the remains of somebody else. And we all kind of have a really good idea at this point in time of who it is, because the Jackal starts using terminology that wouldn't be necessarily Miles Warren's. It's like, oh, this is a very important person to me. And it's just... I'm going to spoil things right here, so if you haven't read Clone Conspiracy, I suggest, pausing the video, reading the Clone Conspiracy, and then going from there. Alright, so let's just head into it, because the Jackal is Ben Reilly. And I kind of called that in the comments of the video a little while ago, and it seemed blatantly obvious right from the beginning that Ben Reilly has been the Jackal for quite some time, simply because, the jawline structure was different than Miles Warren. The way that he kind of approached things is very unlike the Jackal in terms of its characteristics. And there's a lot of mysterious things that are surrounding the way that this technology arose and how this really happened. As soon as it started jumping multiverse to multiverse to multiverse, it's like, is it one Jackal in one multiverse, or is the Jackal across them all? So we have no explanation for how Ben Reilly became the Jackal, and that's going to be probably one of the most key things going forward. As far as the art's concerned, Jim Cheung has been doing a great job on this book, and it's probably one of the prettier Spider-Man books that's come out in recent memory, so I really enjoy the way this is going. But this does, it gives you some things, but then it forces you to ask other questions. Because what is Ben Reilly's real purpose as the Jackal? In the Scarlet Spider's miniseries, The Surrounded Spider-Verse, when Ben Reilly finally met his maker, he understood that he was an alternate universe version of Ben Reilly. But what he did was that he sacrificed himself to basically save the other people that were, attacking this cloning facility. And this was the cloning facility that helped the inheritors regenerate, so that every time that they, died, they would get imprinted into a new body. So my theory for how this is going to go, and again, we're still in spoiler territory, is that Ben Reilly is not necessarily the Ben Reilly from Earth 616. Ben Reilly is the universe-hopping Ben Reilly from, I think it's Earth 95 or something like that, where Peter Parker lost his powers and ultimately entrusted everything to Ben Reilly. And when he blew up the Inheritors facility, he actually survived that, and then took and manipulated that technology. So we're not dealing with Ben Reilly from 616, we're dealing with an alternate universe hopping Ben Reilly that is basically becoming the Jackal. So this is one of those things where now Dan Slott's kind of got me on the hook, because this overall experience, if you're talking about the tie-ins, other than Amazing Spider-Man, haven't really served any purpose at all, because ultimately they're a confusing part of the continuity. And Prowler, Hobie Brown, and Electro are about to throw down on, Alcatraz, but that has to be sometime in the past or it has to be sometime in the future, and neither of those make any kind of sense. So that's one of the things that I'm having a really big trouble with the Prowler tie-in. As far as the Silk tie-in, it has had almost nothing to do with New You at all. I mean, there aren't a lot of issues into it, but there's been no allusion to Cindy Moon anywhere in the main Clone Conspiracy title either. So it's just one of those things where those two don't really serve a whole lot of purpose, and Amazing Spider-Man is basically doing the backstory for everything that's been revealed in the Clone Conspiracy. So what we're going to see, most likely in the next issue of Amazing Spider-Man, is the reason why Ben Reilly became the Jackal. So that's one of the ones that you've got to really tune in for. So overall, I would have to say that if you're following along with Clone Conspiracy, this is probably one of the strongest issues so far, and it's got the most meaning, it's got the most purpose, and it's the thing that makes you want to continue to read along. You could probably ditch the Prowler and the Silk tie-ins, but just keep reading Amazing Spider-Man and Clone Conspiracy, and you're going to be all set. So overall, it's a recommendation from me, especially if you've been following along. Can't really help but recommend a good Amazing Spider-Man story. It's just in my nature. So that's my review of Clone Conspiracy number 3, but I want to know what you guys thought about it too and whether you saw that coming. So hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.